to Midland Squirrel Hunter. So this video is going to be a little bit different in the sense of it just be me in this room talking about the decline of the native red squirrel and how the non-native grey has had a massive impact on that and still does to present day. Some of you might find that a little bit boring. Hopefully a lot of you will find it interesting and take away a bit of information from that. It'd be greatly appreciated as well if you could share some of your own knowledge in the comments. Sightings of reds, sightings of greys. It'll all be interesting to read. So we'll start off, I guess, at the start when greys were first introduced into England. That was in 1876 in Henbury Park, which is in Cheshire. So they were brought here as an ornamental species by the Victorians. From 1876 to 1926, they were released into 30 different sites across England, causing them to breed and spread out into Wales, Scotland, and even Northern Ireland. So one of the main culprits for that was the 11th Duke of Bedford. His name was Herbrand Russell. He would breed, release and gift grey squirrels, mainly to stately homes and manor houses, because as I say, they were ornamental species kept in gardens, and then given to parks and things like that at a later date. So it is said that he's held responsible for the grey squirrel epidemic in London because he introduced the grey to Regent's Park. I don't know what year that would have been or the number of greys he introduced there. Maybe one of you could leave a comment if anybody knows that. And they caused a massive decline in the native red. This wasn't really picked up until around the 1930s, to be honest, that the problem with greys started to arise. Around 1953, there was a bounty put out on squirrels' heads, which was a shilling or 2 shotgun cartridges for every grey squirrel's tail. Then in 1956, they upped the ante to 2 shillings, and I'm pretty sure it just stayed at 2 shotgun cartridges. It could have gone to 4 again. Maybe somebody could educate me with that. And I have heard a rumour that a long time ago you could get a head of cabbage for a squirrel's tail. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I have heard it. In 1981, the Wildlife and Countryside Act released a schedule, number 9, and in 1985 they added to that, which was mainly involving the trapping, dispatching of the grey squirrel, and there's a lot as well about the conservation and protection of the native red. I won't go into any of that because it is long-winded, so you could read that yourself. I'm sure you can find it on Google or anything. So yeah, there's that. I'll just show you a few images of red squirrels that have contracted squirrel pox, which is a virus that the grey carries, and that's the reason that there is such an epidemic with the grey squirrel in the UK, and they have zero protection because of that. So squirrel pox is a virus that they have grown an immunity to, but can pass it on to our native red. How that's done is by eating from the same feeders, even being on the same tree. It can literally be just that, just from what they've contaminated. The virus really is a torturous death, to be honest, for a red. So as soon as it's contracted, within 4 to 5 days, the red will die, but it's an agonising death. So for people that don't know about this or haven't seen anything before I show you the images, some of them can be quite disturbing, so if you don't want to see that, then turn it off or whatever you want to do. But I could only really compare it to, say, myxomatosis, which is in rabbits, with the scabbing around the eyes and all that kind of thing. The scabbing is caused by pus that secretes from the squirrel's body because it gets abscesses, boils, everything. It attacks its organs. So the eyes scab up every orifice, ears, nose, and it's really a painful death. the skin starts to scab over, obviously fur falls out. You'll see from some of the images that I'm about to show you just how bad it really can be. And yeah, it's the non-native grey that carries this virus, and is also a very invasive species, which I'll talk about in the next part of the video. As you can see from these images, it causes scabbing around the squirrel's eyes, leading it to become blind and immobile. Ulcers appear on the body, popping and again secreting pus and causing real agony for the squirrel, to the point where it really can't pick up food. This one here, you can see his ears deteriorated. The squirrels become that immobile that picking up food and just basic needs like eating really do become impossible. So as you will have seen from the images, squirrel pox really isn't a very pleasant virus, not that any virus is. But yeah, it just causes a slow, drawn out death for the red, and no animal really deserves to suffer like that. Unfortunately, what I know of, there's no cure and there's no kind of vaccination or anything like that they can do to stop the spread. The only way I know, and like most of the people that do pest control and woodland pest control, is to just dispatch. It's not just the virus that pushes the red into decline concerning the grey, it's also the fact that the grey will outcompete the red. So the size of a grey squirrel on average is 55 centimetres from nose to tail, whereas the average size of a red from nose to tail is 40 to 45 centimetres. They will outcompete for food, for territory, so pushing them out of woodlands and forests. They will outcompete at breeding. So greys have 2 litters a year, reds only have 1, and greys have a considerable amount more kits within their litter than reds do. And it's not just the reds that they push into decline, there's also other British species that are being put into decline because of the grey. So the songbirds, we've got robins, finches, sparrows, all that kind of thing. Blue tits, great tits, nuthatches. These are the kind of birds where greys will nest raid. So when you see, for example, a grey running backwards and forwards across the top of a hedgerow in the early spring, they're actually looking for nests for the eggs, and they're known to eat the eggs and the chicks. They will also compete for nests with, say, an owl, because an owl will nest inside a rotting tree or hollow in a tree, and squirrels also do that. So they'll push an owl out of a nest by just keep pestering and pestering. Now, all squirrels live in a thing called a dray, which usually grows between the fork of a tree where there's 2 branches coming off. They'll build like a football shaped nest out of twigs and moss, but they will also nest inside hollows and other things like that, which again will push owls out and other nesting birds within there. Then there's bark stripping as well. So this is a real problem, causes a hell of a lot of tree damage on the permissions that I tend, and I know it causes a lot of damage in public woodlands because I see it myself. You become aware of it once you know what it is. So with bark stripping, this is something that squirrels do to get the nectar, to get the sap from underneath the bark. A lot of people think they do it to keep the teeth sharp or blunt, but that's not the reason, not what I know of anyway. It's to take the sap, so they'll strip the bark back and then take the sap. As they run around the forest or the woodland, they'll leave a scent trail, which will then bring other squirrels in, and they'll do the same thing. And before you know it, the tree's being completely stripped. And the only way I can describe the damage this does really is like if you was to take a layer of skin off, say, your forearm and leave it open to the elements, you're going to get infection, you're going to get disease. It's the same thing with a tree. So the limb of the tree becomes diseased, it then starts to rot. When it rots, naturally it's just going to now fall. On its way down, it can cause so much damage to other trees where you've got nesting birds, whether that be in a tree or ground nesting birds, damage to habitat, so much damage to other wildlife. It leaves the tree open to even more rot and disease and funguses that can get in there and decompose the tree. Believe it or not, there are fungi out there that do that. And yeah, it's even if that woodland's tended, you've then got the labour intensity of having to move a fallen limb. So you've got to go into the woodland, you've then got to cut it up, which means you've got to take a chainsaw in there, all that kind of thing. You've got to drag it out. If it's deep inside a woodland, that becomes a real time and labour intensive task, which could cost landowners quite a lot of money in the long run. The landowner on our big permission is quite fortunate in the sense we do everything voluntary. He looks after us, but we also look after him. Yeah, and it's just destruction really. Wherever the grey's involved, there's not really anything positive. It's just always a negative outcome. So how do we deal with this? Well, there are a couple of means to deal with it, but for me, there's only really two ways, and that, if done efficiently and done correctly, would be trapping and shooting to dispatch of the grey. So with trapping, this is a thing where people it really is a sensitive subject. A lot of people don't like it, but then are they miseducated? I don't know. It's, to me, as long as you're efficient with your trap, you're punctual, so you don't leave it for any more than say 6 to 8 hours, and you make sure you're quite regimented with that, you'll be fine trapping. The same with if you're dispatching through means of say a sub-12 air gun or any kind of air gun or any firearms, to be honest. A nice, clean, efficient headshot is always the way. We do make mistakes at times, we have misses and things like that, but 9 times out of 10 you're going for a nice clean headshot. If you're not confident at taking the shot and you don't think it's going to result in the dispatching of the grey, don't take it. It's that simple. It's not essential that you injure an animal, it's essential that we dispatch. So yeah, that's that. I could sit here and talk about this for hours, and to be honest, I'm really looking forward to reading some of the comments. Hopefully some of you will comment with a bit of your own knowledge and even some experiences, because we all have really weird and wonderful sightings and experiences when we're out in the woodlands. We've all seen some funny things. So yeah, if you could share them as well. And as I say, any sightings of reds or greys, please don't leave any areas or descriptions of where you've seen them, just if you have and how many you have. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure making the video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, then make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again on the next one. Thank you. Just thought I'd finish the video off with a few images of bark stripping. This is in the early stages in one of the woodland permissions that we have, though it happens across all of our permissions. And the worse it gets, it then leads to disease within the tree, causing limbs to then fall. As you'll see in this image, we do cover this in one of our other videos, A Day on the Greys. So if you'd like to go over and watch that, it'd be appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and please like and subscribe.